Hello Reddit readers, today we will hear the most interesting stories about layoffs. I will not detain you anymore. Like and subscribe to the channel of pleasant viewing. Story 1 from user Dracula Batman. I was 19 and working as a janitor at a large self-storage facility, where most days were filled with sweeping and mopping endless hallways of flickering fluorescent light. And when someone went delinquent on their bill after a 3-month grace period, I would be instructed to empty their unit and dump everything in the trash outside. Once or twice it was a person who died, but otherwise it was pretty common to see a room full of absolute junk that someone got tired of paying for banged up furniture, garbage bags of ratty clothing, stacks of old magazines. It was usually pretty hoarder-friendly stuff, and not that I'd want any of it. But the policy was, I had to throw it into the dumpster outside, no matter what it was. One day I get notified to empty out a unit, so I grab the bin, cut the lock, fling open the gate. The room is full of huge cardboard boxes stacked to the ceiling. I open one up out of curiosity, and it's full of brand new unopened Gundam models. The entire room is full of them, dozens of boxes with dozens of models in each, and I'm talking the 50-100 ones I saw for sale at my local comics shop every week. The manager would check up on me once or twice a day, and that morning he walked up and I showed him all of the brand new merchandise and said, "There has to be a better system than trashing all of this." He said rules are rules. Something about insurance I didn't understand and told me to throw them all away. So I went and I backed up one of the complimentary U-Haul style box trucks, picked a few models out for myself, and loaded it up the truck. With the rest of it on my lunch break, I drove over to the Children's Resource Center that I'd volunteered at during high school. It's a place where any child, but usually poorer ones, would go after school for arts and crafts and activities to keep them busy until their parents got home. The people at the drop-off dock were so grateful before I even left. They were handing them out to some extremely excited kids. Drove back to the self-storage place with enough time to eat a sandwich and smoke a cigarette before clocking back in. But that's not why I got fired. I got fired because the manager came to check on me that afternoon, and after a while of looking around, found me sitting cross-legged on the floor of the janitor closet with model parts spread all around me, happily assembling a sweet translucent Zaku model. I was so entranced I didn't even hear him come in. I just hear this long, drawn-out, exasperated sigh. I look up and he just says keys, and that was that. I spent the rest of the week assembling Zakus and Valkyries and lying to my parents about getting replaced with a Roomba. Story 2 from user Firebolt164. I was a brand new engineer out of college. Like Green, I got a job offer at an aircraft factory, Cessna, a Textron company. As a quality engineer, I had been an intern for 3 years, and they helped put me through school. I worked in a projects group designing new floor layouts and how these business jets flowed through the process. I had always received good performance reviews, and that is why my internship turned into a scholarship and into a job offer. When I started full-time, I was assigned to a facility across town that did sheet metal stuff. I remember walking into the office on my first day, introducing myself to my new manager. She immediately turned away, refused to shake my hand, and ignored me. The next 6 months were the same. She legit would not speak to me, would not give me projects, would not schedule one-on-ones to give any direction. And if I was on an email chain and she was looped in, she would take me off. I would walk over to her, and she would hunch her back and try to cover whatever she was working on. So I couldn't see as if it was some big secret. Finally, I got involved in some continuous improvement projects. I was asked by our director to run with a few special projects, and I started, in my opinion, really finding a groove. Finally, she pulled me into a conference room, yelled at me for 2 hours. Yes, 2 hours about how I was not doing the things she wanted me to do. She gave me a self-help book and told me I needed to read it and tell her what was wrong with myself, and she terminated me without HR or anybody else knowing. To this day, I never knew what her problem was or why she hated me. From the moment I introduced myself, I have a wonderful and successful career and currently manage quality for 4 factories in a Swedish conglomerate. And if I ever see her again, I will tell her how I have modeled my management style after promising myself I would never be like her. My employees always know what is expected of them, how they know if they are succeeding, where they can go for help if they are not. Story 3 from user AF Fresh. December of last year, my kids and I all got COVID. Obviously, we had to stay at home on the 3rd day. My boss messaged me on Teams and asked if I was still going to be out for a bit. I told him that yes, I obviously couldn't come in and spread COVID to everyone. He said that I could stay home, but I wouldn't be paid. As I was out of PTO days, he had no real system for tracking PTO and claimed he just kept a notebook where he would put tally marks on the paper to track each employee's time. I told him that I absolutely still had PTO and that taking money from my salary was unacceptable. He started going on some rant about how he has been more than fair with me. Regarding time off, I then offered to review all of my emails and messages and create an Excel sheet detailing each day. I was not at work. At the end of it, I found that I still had 8 days of PTO. He then took issue with some of the days that I worked from home and said that it's an on-site position working from home is rarely approved, but he had previously approved those days. So I just responded that he can't retroactively decide that I didn't work that day when he had approved the work from home. After some back and forth, he told me that I was not to contact him directly any longer and should go through a teammate of mine for communication, and that he would be looking for another job if he were me. So I stopped contacting him as requested, and I casually began looking for jobs. He notified me in the middle of February that I would be terminated at the end of the month. Reason given was unexplained and unexcused absences after leaving. He ignored my requests for my PTO time to be paid out, which was required in our contract. He didn't respond until I implied legal action, cited a law that indicated he had already exceeded the deadline for payout and CCD, the CEO of the company. Ultimately, I accepted a position making about twice as much when you factor in the benefits. Meanwhile, I have former co-workers texting me, telling me how everything has fallen apart since I left. I've also had the company that had contracted my former employer for the work I was performing reach out to me and asked me to apply for a role that would involve me managing my former co-workers. Getting fired sucks, but knowing that it had nothing to do with you and everything to do with a narcissistic asshat certainly does make it much easier to get over. Story 4 from user Corrado33. Worked at a contract brewery. We made beer and things like canned Arizona tea. I worked QC. It was my job to make sure the drink scans were up to snuff. I had to make sure the alcohol content was correct, sugar content was correct, pH was correct, etc. My boss gave me specification sheets for every single drink we made. Alcohol content range, blah blah. Sugar content range, blah blah. One night I worked second shift. A large batch of Arnold Palmer came back with way too low of sugar content. My shift was technically over, but I stayed after for 20 minutes to help the next person do the calculations. We did. The calculations told the floor staff how much sugar to add, and they added it. I get a call the next day to come in early and talk to the boss. I get to his office and he said, "Do you know why you're here?" Me? No. You added too much sugar to that batch last night. Me? No, I didn't hear the calculations right here. They're perfect. They matched the specification sheet exactly. They were perfect and did match the specification sheet exactly. Worth noting that I wrote the Excel spreadsheets that everyone used to do their calculations. Well, the specification sheet was incorrect, me. Okay, well, that's unfortunate. Certainly not my fault, though. As I didn't write them, I think the person who wrote them should have been more careful and not copied and pasted. Are you upset that you made a mistake? Me? I didn't make a mistake. I did my job exactly as I was told to do it. I mean, yeah, it sucks that it happened, but it wasn't really my fault in any way, shape, or form. It wasn't even my shift at the time. I was told to go home. I got a call a few hours later saying that I was being let go because I didn't care that I made a mistake. Want to guess who made those specification sheets? Yep, my boss. The one who I was talking to, I was his scapegoat. My friend whom I was helping that night told me this. Afterwards, the people working there were really dumb, though, for example, we had an auto titrator, so we didn't actually have to do titrations, except they never used it because it was never right. Me knowing damn well that a machine should be a hell of a lot better at a titration than a human should be, or at least much, much quicker for a similar result. Looked at the machine someone had programmed in a 13 ml initial aliquot to be injected into the sample before any measurement was done. This setting was there to make titrations much more quick when you roughly knew how much base it'd take to reach the equivalence point. So if the titration would take 15 ml, yeah, you'd say, hey, inject 13 ml to start with. So we can just get close without going over the amount of base we needed to reach the equivalence point was somewhere in the range of 56 ml. So that expensive-ass machine sat there for years. It had dust on it because not one person decided to look in the settings. Worth noting that this job was not difficult. 80 of the time you were sitting there doing nothing. Because if during your shift they only bottled one type of drink, you only had to test the drinks like once every 2 hours. And you had to test the cans once every hour. Once every 4 hours, you had to test the pasteurization oven. AKA, you ran a recording thermometer through it and looked at the results. And the tests did not take long. Most of the time when I was working there, I was out walking the line, trying to fix things, because everything broke constantly, and I was the only one with half a brain enough to try to figure out how to fix them. Many days, the COXU staff sat there and did literally nothing, as the line was down, and no one knew how to fix it. So we had nothing to test. The line was always down for asinine reasons too. Like, oh, the pallet wrapper broke, so all the boxes are just backing up without being wrapped. You're going to stop the entire line for that, wrap them manually. You dumbasses. Another one was, oh, the boxing machine don't open the boxes correctly, so it won't put the cans into the boxes. It's worth noting that if the line ever stopped for more than a minute or two, all of the cans inside the pasteurization oven were ruined. Literal thousands of cans were ruined. Okay. Maybe not all of them, but all of the ones in the hottest part of the oven would be. So if you ever have a beer that tastes weird, look on the bottom for what look like scorch marks or even stretch marks. It means that can was in the pasteurization oven for too long. Edit fun fact, did you know that some beers, namely local ones, are identical, despite being sold under different labels? I think Keystone Light and American Light were the literal exact same batch of beer, we'd just run one set of cans. Then when we ran out, we'd run the other ones. Exact same liquid. There was another brand too, but I forget what it was. And the funny part is that these beers sell for different prices. Edit 2. Oh, there was one day that was actually somewhat cool to work there. One day they accidentally packaged American Light beer inside of American Ale boxes. Everything was correct, otherwise the beer was in the correct. The cans were all good, etc. They were just in the wrong boxes. Want to guess how they fixed it? They sent all the boxes through the trash grinder. So I walked up to the guys doing the job and said, hey, can I take some of these cases? They told me sure, since they couldn't be sold and were just going to be destroyed. So me and my college buddies got to enjoy like 68 cases of American Light, which TBH is an awful beer for free. Also drinking ice-cold Arizona tea. Right off the bottling line before it was pasteurized was a super fun experience. Yes, that was part of the job actually. We had to taste test occasionally, which really just meant go out and grab a drink and enjoy it occasionally. So long as it wasn't alcoholic, of course. Yes, everything is bottled cold. So when Coors Light ran the slogan that was like cold from mountain to your hand, it was all a bunch of shit. Everything is bottled ice. Cold. That's how it works. Story 5 from user BookieBoo369. You know the person that's always stealing other people's stuff out of the shared refrigerator kitchen space at work? Someone close to me got fired because they decided to do something about it, which would leave it up to the thief's choice. In the end, they brought in a Ziploc bag full of dog treats, think beef jerky looking ones. They left them out in the open on the table with their name on the bag, came back later. Bag was empty. Jackass didn't even think to throw the bag out after they ate the dog treats. Months later, when my hero was supposed to be up for a big raise bonus, they got called into HR. HR said they had heard that they willingly fed another human animal food. Word had gotten around from within because others were in on the whole plan, because Thief was stealing their food too. Thief was also stealing merchandise, personal belongings. You willingly fed another co-worker animal food. Hero, allegedly, they didn't fire the thief. Either he stopped showing up for workaday to anyone that it really bothered that this was not about how I got fired. Well, shit, my bad. It did happen to someone close to me, and I felt it needed to be told if it wasn't clear. The person close to me did in fact get fired for this exact instance, I stated. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and write comments. See you later.